All right, welcome to another episode, and today we are talking about Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. Darren, I was going to give a spoiler alert for this in case people hadn't seen the movie, and then I was thinking about that, and I was like, "Well, wait a minute, isn't this story like 3,000 years old, and didn't like every single high schooler have to be victim to having to read this story over and over and over again?" So, if you haven't seen the story or don't know the story by now, I feel like it's on you, you know? So.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's directed by Christopher Nolan. A pretty star-studded cast. At least I feel like, I mean, what do you think? Just I guess we can start there. What do you think about like the cast?
Well, okay, obviously, as you could predict, I kind of have a problem with it. Uh,
I didn't even mean to start this controversial. I literally meant it as it blipped my mind. Oh, Elliot Page and what's her name playing Helena Troy. It totally blipped I was thinking like, oh, we'll talk about like how Tom Holland is this up and coming actor with Zendaya. And I'm like, oh, Darren's gonna go straight to the obvious. But go ahead. I didn't mean to get us there, I swear, but we're here now.
no, you're fine. Well, there's actually a lot to say about it. There's a lot to say about it. So, on one hand, obviously it sticks out, and obviously the characters described in the Odyssey, even though they are fictional, would they certainly were not what the Greeks had imagined, I guess, when the poems were being formulated. Uh, I'm not a fan of it. I think it sticks out like a sore thumb. I think it breaks the immersion of the film. I mean, alongside many other artistic choices. And ultimately, I do believe it is anti-white. Uh, and I say that because this standard where they diversify the casting on these historical fictions, that's imposed on no other race. So when we had that movie that came out a few years ago with the African warrior women, the Dahomey. I mean, obviously, if you saw a white woman in their ranks, that would stick out like a sore thumb. It would look strange, out of place, and it would make the whole movie seem a little silly. But despite the casting, I did enjoy the movie. I mean, I did have a fun time with it. It's just a shame that I think it could have been a really good movie, but I mean, Christopher Nolan made these just really silly, totally avoidable artistic choices that really I just don't have any explanation for why he did them. Whether it be a black, sub-Saharan Helen of Troy or a transsexual Achaean warrior. I mean, it just makes no sense. But what say you? Did you hate the casting choices? Are you in favor of it? Are you ambivalent? Like where do you land on that spectrum?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, leave it to people like you and you yourself who, could take this movie with basically, let's just round it to 3 hours of screen time, right? And combine Helen of Troy and I forget the person Elliot Page plays, but whoever he plays. I mean, they probably have a combined screen time of you're talking like less than 15 minutes, dude. Like you're probably talking like they're in the 8 minute range between the both of them combined. I can't I can't imagine that you're sitting there, you think the movie's fine, you think the movie's fine, and then they come up and you just go, oh, but gods. Like
Well,
this is not serious critiques, I think.
well,
But
it is, and I'm trying to not like chud out about it because I do think like the Twitter timeline has been way too chuddy. but it's almost like, well, if it's only 10 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever, why even make the choice? Why even make that artistic choice
No,
where it
don't
just,
don't flip this on the head. We're not the ones outraged about it, and nor are we the ones. We would
well, of
not.
course you're not outraged about
We
it. Like, why make the artistic choice if
but
it's only
we
10 minutes?
but we wouldn't be outraged if Helen of Troy would have been like a white Anglo-Saxon woman, despite the fact that I don't know if you know this, Helen of Troy was not a white Anglo-Saxon woman, right? There would have been no one on the left that would have given a shit, right?
Well,
Um,
hold on. Okay, this is a critique that I have a real problem with
I did
because,
not think we would get bogged down here. Good Lord. All right, go
well, I
ahead.
hope we do. This is why I said this topic could last us an hour. So, okay, Helen of Troy, she may have been a, Mediterranean woman, but ultimately, if you looked at her, you would classify her as white. And I read the Iliad just before this, in the lead up to this movie, and I nearly finished the Odyssey. I mean, she's described as fair haired in that. Now, fair haired is up to interpretation. That doesn't necessarily mean blonde. It could mean light haired or maybe even a light brunette. But you would concede that the person that, even though Homer may or may not have existed, the person Homer described when he, you know, told this tale of Helen of Troy obviously was not a sub-Saharan.
Yeah, I would concede that. Yeah. But you also have to concede, right, that during this time, and we're talking about like the 12th century BCE, right? Like we're talking, what is that? Almost 3,000 plus years ago, right? You understand
Hmm.
Europeans were still living in caves in France, right? Like there's no scenario where this is some France or French or Germanic or Norwegian woman, right? That is also, and you would not be outraged about that, now would you? Right?
No,
Like
no, hold on. No, I still think this is a bad critique. Another point, because the genetic distance between like a Mycenaean Greek versus an a modern day Anglo-Saxon, like a wasp you would find in America, is still like not very far. It's, far shorter genetic distance and far more believable,
we're bringing in
especially.
genetics, we're talking about an epic poem. It is it is an
Well,
ill
you brought up genetics.
it's pure no. You did. You brought up the
What do
fact
you
that
mean? You
you
did.
said
You brought
you
up
said
the
you would
Anglo-Saxon woman. I'm saying the genetic
you
distance
that was
between an Anglo.
in response, sir, in response to you bringing up the fact that she couldn't have been sub-Saharan, and I conceded that, just like you would have to concede, just like I did, that it is also true that she would not be of like a wasp category. It's just a fact.
Okay, she would not be a wasp, but the difference between a wasp and a Mycenaean Greek is so slim that it doesn't break my immersion by seeing a wasp portray a Mycenaean Greek. If, for example, also Benny Safdie, he played Agamemnon in this movie, and he's a Jew. He's very Jewish looking, but that didn't break my immersion because I think Jews look close enough to what I envision a Greek of that time would look like. I mean, well, even Greeks of today, what they look like. So, I mean, even though I know for a fact that Benny Safdie is not, a Hellenic, he's not a Chian by any stretch. He's descended from Eastern Mediterraneans. So I can say, okay, he's close enough to what my conception of a Greek person was at this time. And I also recognize that many of based on, because I've read the Iliad and I'm reading the Odyssey, I can say, okay, these people are, many of which are described as fair skinned, fair haired. I don't think a white person would be out of place like a transsexual or a sub-Saharan would be.
I mean, I guess that's fair. Well, I mean, let's okay. So first of all, let's stick with Helen of Troy here. And let me just, I guess, start with it. We will get to Elliot Page. Um,
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll stick
I
with the
just,
race first.
I just don't want to bounce back and forth. I think it'll be hard for the audience to follow. So sticking with Helen of Troy, I think you're missing the idea of what Helen of Troy was supposed to be. I don't think she was supposed to be this white beacon of, pure beauty. I think she's just supposed to be a symbol of beauty. So they got an attractive looking black woman, and your beef with that, the reason you have to just be like, is because she's sub-Saharan. I'm sorry, I just can't do it. I refuse to let myself be outraged by such a minor, inconvenient part of the story. I just can't do
It
it.
it it wouldn't even be that big a deal, but this standard is imposed on no other race, it seems. And we would all agree that, like with my example, the Warrior Queen or whatever that movie was with the Dahomies in Africa, that it would be ridiculous to see a white woman dressed up in some African garb, in some kind of spear fight with another African woman or something. Obviously that would stick out, and so I think it's just a little. It's the double standard for me because this artistic choice never seems to go the other way.
The only thing I could, and let me just concede this to you before I say this. Yes, I would agree that it's doesn't ever happen. The only issue, or the only one I can think of off the top of my head, is Johnny Cash's biopic. One of his wives is African American, and they have a white woman playing it because they thought it wouldn't play well to the audience. So, um, but
Well, and
that's
see, honestly, I would be against that casting choice. I would have preferred,
how
I've never
brave.
seen that movie.
Now, how
Yeah.
brave of you. Yeah, how brave of you.
Yes, yes. If he married a black woman, then have a black woman portray her.
I mean, look, I understand the frustration if Christopher Nolan, well, and we'll get to this later, but I don't want to get to my critique of the movie now because it seems like we're sticking on yours for a while. But like if Christopher Nolan would have came out and said like, "Hey, just so you guys know, we're trying to make this the most historically accurate one ever," and you are choosing to make it about the race of Helen of Troy who never existed. Like, which is very interesting to me. And rather than the costumes, the fact that there's a fucking cyclops and a race of giants, all of that, you were able to, oh, well, how am I supposed to be immersed when they have giants in metal armor and a cyclops? My goodness.
Okay, but
And pagan
okay, but you
gods.
know what was described in the Iliad and the Odyssey, and it's not Lupita Nyong'o. Like, okay, at what point does it stop? Okay, so let's say, okay, so it's fiction, so we're throwing realism to the wind. So instead of being in a chariot, maybe they can be in a Dodge Challenger, and instead of being in a boat, they can be in a speedboat. Like something with a electronic
I
or
don't know
gas
if
powered motor.
I don't know
I
if
mean, when
I don't know if you're aware of this, but there is a movie, perhaps the best iteration of the Odyssey, is a modern version. Well, I should say modern. It's based off of the 1920s. It's called Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? It's got George Clooney in it. It's got John Goodman in it. Like it's a modern adaptation of the story, and it's widely popular. It's probably one of the highest grossing Odyssey movies ever.
Okay,
So
but that's not what this is. This is supposed to be set in
I can't,
ancient
so
Greece.
it can't be said that you give this whole spiel about like, well, what if they did modern technology? And I'm like, well, they did that and it was wildly successful. And you're like, you can't.
Yes, because that one it was supposed to be oh my gosh, you can't be serious. It was supposed to. be a retelling of the Odyssey, but in modern times. This is a retelling of the Odyssey in ancient times in the Aegean Sea.
I have
Like,
news for you.
like
There
this,
there there
this is
were
literally happening at the Bronze Age collapse. Like they even make specific references to, like, very explicit references, which we might
by
discuss
name.
later.
Yeah, by name.
Yes,
Yeah.
by name. So I mean, we know the time, we know the place, so it doesn't make sense to, oh brother, where art thou? That made sense because it's like a parody of the Odyssey. But this is not analogous.
I just firmly disagree because as far as I'm concerned, they could have a modern adaptation of the Odyssey or even an ancient one with, motor cars and speedboats and cars. And as long as they had, you know, I don't know, Jennifer Lawrence playing Helen of Troy, you would be totally fine with it as long as it wasn't whatever her name is, right? Like that's I don't know. I
No,
see.
no, 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 no. I would have problems because, and
Sure. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
from here we yes, and I'll go into them in just seconds. So from here we can jump off the race issue because the movie, it is what it is. Nolan casted who he casted. I can't change it. We can circle back to uh, Elliot Page, later if we desire. But here's my defense of what I'm saying. I would have a problem if they used a Dodge Challenger because I had a problem with the armor that Christopher Nolan used. I had a minor problem with the boat. The armor, most especially, looked stupid. That's not what Bronze Age barbarians wore. That's what, like, Peloponnesian War Greeks wore, when they were fighting. That, the armor they have is like Iron Age, not Bronze Age. I mean, you know, I don't think we've ever even seen Bronze Age armor committed to film in any, like,
Because
really
it
cool
because
way.
it because it looks horrible. Like have you seen what like real Bronze Age armor looked like? It looked ridiculous. It looked
It
like a
looked badass. It looked
it looked like
badass.
a cocoon. No, 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 no. I listen, and this is do we want to talk about Elliot Page or do we want to answer the question of like how historically accurate are we going to want our movies to be, for the sake of like artistic liberty? Like let me just tell you, I am willing to give them like rope for lack of a better term in order to create a better story. Now the rope has limits. Your rope seems to be more dependent on was so and so actually from there, da, 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 whatever, right? I think mine is more tied to how true did they stick to the story, like Homer's intention, right? Which is more about like the theme, the what Homer wanted to emphasize. If Homer was real, obviously, you and I both know Homer likely never existed, but let's just whoever wrote it is who I mean whenever I say Homer. But um, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I'm willing to suspend a little bit of historical accuracy for the sake of good content. I don't know.
Uh, well, we can definitely flesh this out. I'm actually going to take the opposite tact because I think I see where you're going with this. Uh, Obviously, the core message of Nolan's Odyssey versus the Odyssey of the of Homer is far different because,
Yes, I
it,
completely agree.
like it, yeah, like in Homer's Odyssey, Odysseus feels no guilt for what he's
Yes.
done.
Yeah, if I may. Because this was actually my critique of the movie.
Okay, go for it. Go for it.
If you were to watch this movie and you were expecting to have like a one for one copy of like what Homer wrote and what Christopher Nolan was going to write just in movie version, you would be sadly disappointed like I was, right? My critique of the movie had nothing to do with the fact that the armor wasn't necessarily accurate. Maybe some of the casting choices weren't as accurate as they could have been. My critique of the movie is that like we didn't get Homer's The Odyssey. We got Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, right? Odysseus's character completely changed, right? Like to be candid, right? And you said you've recently read this. I'm going off of what I remember from high school or like middle of college whenever we had to reread it. Odysseus is an arrogant, smart prick who has no remorse for winning the Trojan War, and would basically sacrifice all his men in order to get the fuck home, which is what he basically did. And this Odysseus is self-reflective. Like, did I cause the Bronze Age collapse? Did I make a mistake by winning the Trojan War? He's kind of a pussy, right? Like he's
Yeah.
it makes no sense. And I think the divine element is drastically different. Basically, the only god we see literally is Athena, right? Like in person. Like we don't really even see, Poseidon, Zeus, the god of the winds, I forget his name. We don't see him at all. And like these are people that Odysseus literally has conversations with. So it's like, huh. And they messed up the most iconic scene of the Odyssey is the damn Cyclops. And they messed it up. They made it like a bumbling idiot rather than like someone that could talk and conversate with Odysseus. And instead they turned it into a moron, basically. It just, I don't know. That was my critique of the movie. Sorry to ramble.
No, you're fine. No, I mean these were things I had thought about and written down for us to discuss. Like, and and yeah, I will say I don't like. Here's what I'll say. I am open to an artist taking an old story and conveying it on the screen and giving us a new message from it, reinterpreting it. I am okay with that, uh, as long as certain aesthetic choices uh, I find are still aesthetically appealing to me. So I'm not necessarily opposed to an Odyssey reinterpretation. The problem with this, though, is that he reinterpreted it in a stupid way because it actually makes very little sense. I mean, pretty much the whole plot of the Odyssey hinges on Odysseus being pretty ruthless and, uncaring. So to make him, I don't know, to make him like Lieutenant Dan or something, it just doesn't mesh well with the source material. Like it doesn't make sense. Like why, he's going to be Lieutenant Dan, but he did uh decisively win the Trojan War with his tactics. So
Hmm.
I don't know. The messaging is a little strange. It's like, oh, so he feels guilty about that, but he's gonna massacre all the suitors that are in his house, some of which, at least in the book, actually seem to be less bad than others. Some, I mean, in the movie, they're all portrayed as fairly bad. Maybe some are slightly more redeemable, but you don't really get the sense for that some of them have a conscience that you do in the book. But
Hmm.
in the book, they're all slaughtered. So yeah, I mean, it is kind of a nonsensical thing. And then the artistic choice of almost totally leaving out the gods, but keeping in the mythical monsters. So it's like, okay, we can have the Cyclops and we can have Scylla and Charybdis, but we can't have like Athena, Zeus, Poseidon. I feel like Christopher Nolan's Athena is like a symptom of of Odysseus's PTSD or something. I don't know. I don't
Right. Yeah,
even.
it's actually. I kind of thought the same thing. I was like, is he actually talking to the Athena like he is in the Odyssey, or is he talking like is this just like a PTSD trip? Because I feel like that kind of better explains why he doesn't talk to, Poseidon or gosh, it's really getting to me that I can't remember the god of the winds, but that's a very big one because he sides with Odysseus over Poseidon. So, um, but I don't know, and his bag of wind. I don't know if you remember that part of the story, but that was always my
Yeah,
thought.
I
He had the
forget
bag
his
of wind.
name
It's
because he
not
was like a
important.
wizard or something. He was like a, I don't know if you would call him like a minor god or like a wizard, but he was like a king of this little floating island, and I
Hmm.
think it started with an A, but the names are so different. I tend to forget them.
Alios is what Google says. So thank
Oh,
goodness.
okay.
Now I can sleep. Um, But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with you. Like, what's the idea behind leaving out the divine element, leaving in the monsters, and then creating essentially like what I would consider a new Odysseus? Which, um, you know, to be candid with you, I thought this Odysseus, the movie. Well, we'll get into cinematics later. It was a well shot movie, I would say. It's very action packed, very immersive. But like that's not really what I as like that's not what I was going for whenever I walked into the theater, right? I was looking forward to like a someone who was true to the Odysseus that I've read about in high school and in college. I'll be candid, I haven't read about him afterwards, but you get the idea. Like, and this character, this is not Odysseus. This is a character Christopher Nolan made up. So, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
which is fine, right? Because like, so I mean, you could say the same thing about George Clooney in "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" Right? Like that wildly takes creative liberties, but we knew that going into that movie. You know what I mean? Like we knew this was going to be a modern adaptation, and this was not going to be perfect. This was going to be basically like a parody almost of it. This was supposed to be as close to the true thing as possible. As funny as it might be, I felt like Troy stuck better to the Iliad than this did to the Odyssey. So,
Yeah, I tend to agree. Even though Troy, if you're referring to that movie Brad Pitt was in, uh, some of the artistic choices in that were not great. The costuming, for example, I have a problem with it as well. I'd say it's probably a little more close to accurate than the costuming in Christopher Nolan's in terms of like what a Bronze Age barbarian might have wore, although it's still pretty far off. Uh, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I did feel as though Troy was probably a more accurate representation of what the heroes and what the landscape of the Iliad would look like, or of what Ilium Troy would look like. Uh, yeah, I don't know. A lot of the artistic choices were strange. Let's go into some of the minor ones. I mean, we've hit why Odysseus himself is kind of odd looking, but I mean, there are a lot of strange things I'd like to kind of pick apart.
sure.
So we have, okay, this one kind of stuck out to me. I wrote it down. So Circe, which was the lady that turned all his men into pigs.
Hmm.
Not what I imagined at all when reading the Odyssey. I had kind of imagined something, far more godlike almost. I don't know that she's actually a god herself. I think she's like near god level. Yeah, she's more like a witch, I guess. But yeah, I kind of imagined something frankly a little sexier, in the movie she's looks like a middle-aged, not terribly pretty woman that's kind of like a feminist or strikes you almost as like a rape survivor. And that's just not who Cersei is in the book. I mean, Cersei is not some like victimized feminist. She's like an enchantress who could very well have, you know, killed Odysseus and all his men. She's not angry or anything, and in fact, she sleeps with Odysseus for a year, and Odysseus is happy to be there. So, yeah, how did you feel about Christopher Nolan's depiction of her? I almost felt like it was kind of a theme throughout. It was kind of like a feminist retelling of Cersei.
I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't think they did her as dirty as bad as maybe you think, but I do think that they undershot her power. Like it basically from the start, like from the moment like she walked in through like the back door or whatever, she was kind of like she was kind of at the mercy of Odysseus and his men, right?
Hmm.
Obviously the men less so whenever they started eating, right? But you get the idea. But that is not her in the book, right? And
Oh yeah.
like she is a very powerful, and she's not a god, right? But she's like a very powerful mortal, right? And in this, I mean, every step of the way, she was basically at the mercy of Odysseus, and it seemed to me like they just kind of underplayed her power to tell another story or another point, but I still don't even know necessarily what that point is. So, as far as it being like a feminist retelling, like, give me a break. Like this is not serious. This is not a serious criticism. But
Well, I don't know. I mean, on one hand, it's like I don't want to call it a feminist thing because she didn't want to be raped or something. But on the other hand, I mean, I do think that like male violence was kind of like the lesson you were supposed to take from that. Like, oh, because ultimately, even if they weren't going to rape her, I mean, it was understood that they could and that they could take whatever they wanted from her. Uh, and that she was basically just going to be subjected to it. Of course, obviously, in the Odyssey, I mean, you know, I don't think I've seen uh, uh, Odysseus rape anyone in the Odyssey, but I mean, he certainly pillaged his fair share, so I don't think he would have too many scruples with doing so.
well, I mean, you even see that in the movie, right? Like, there's a portion where he's like, him and his men need food, so they basically pillage a village, right? Like, which is what
Hmm.
you do, right? Like, people think that these Greeks were, these noble warriors. They think like medieval knights, like people with an honor code and all this. These were not. These are literally like Mediterranean warlords who are subjugating their will against the population. Like it or not, like that's way more accurate than what I feel like the modern perception of them is. Like there's not really an honor code, right? There's just not. Um,
Oh yeah.
but I don't know. What was one of your other points? Unless there was more on this.
Uh, well, in the feminist vein, I felt like you see it probably most strongly, maybe less. It's a little more muted with Cersei because ultimately she's yelling at them because she doesn't want to be raped. So you can't really call that, too feminist. I mean, it's kind of there, but it's like, it might as well be a given. But take a Penelope berating Telemachus. You know, there's a scene where he's like, "Well, I talked it over with Menelaus, and I think the plan is to get you married off to one of the suitors or a suitor from another land or something, and then I can take the throne here in Ithaca because the throne has been empty." And Penelope goes on this little tirade like, "Oh, the throne is empty. Well, I've been sitting in it for 20 years and I have all this experience as a queen. Why can't I uh, be the leader of Ithaca and you're just a boy? You know, something I'm paraphrasing, but obviously in the Odyssey, Penelope is a Bronze Age woman, so she kind of knows her place, to be frank. I mean, she gets told what to do by Telemachus and she obeys, basically. I mean, Telemachus sends her to her room at one point, and she does it. So, in one of the first couple books, if I remember correctly. So, yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
There's like,
I don't know. I don't have as much of an issue with that as maybe you do, or at least maybe it sounds like you do. Like, I thought Penelope's character was pretty well written. Like somebody who was basically deeply loyal to Odysseus. And as far as that scene you're talking about, because I know exactly what scene you're talking about. Um, I just can't imagine that that's your problem with this movie. Like, uh,
I don't really know if I have a huge problem with it because honestly, on one hand, I almost agree. I almost agree with her. I mean, why can't she be queen? Uh, yeah, I mean, she probably does know how to be a good administrator for her little island, but on the other hand, it's like, what are we going? I mean, obviously Christopher Nolan is not going for a one-to-one adaptation. He's going for an interpretation of the source material, and he's going to
a retelling.
reinterpret.
Yeah, a
Yeah,
retelling.
retelling.
Yeah, I on that we agree. Um,
Yeah.
to the idea that like I think that he thinks that okay, let's just get to this. What do you think uh Christopher Nolan's purpose of this was? What do you think he wanted the audience to take away from this?
See, that's
Because
what I don't know. The messaging is somewhat
sure,
unclear. I think definitely the feminist angle, and I guess this is what I was getting at. And I don't even have that big a problem with it or anything. I'm just saying I think that one of the messages is feminism. Maybe the other larger message is that when you sin, or maybe when you commit some heinous act, then that has perhaps a mimetic uh, aftershock, and other people will carry on the violence that you first did. So, like, the sack of Troy caused the Bronze Age collapse. So, I guess maybe the message is be good or other, because if you do bad things, people will copy the bad things. I don't know. What do you think the themes are, or what do you think? Because
well,
it's obviously a reinterpretation. So what do you think the message is?
sure. I mean, first of all, if it's okay with you, let's stick with like and we can be real quick here. Like, what do you think the message is of like the original Odyssey? Because like I figure it's like a tale of hubris, a tale of pride, a tale of like like don't try and outsmart the gods. Like you're smart but for a mortal type of thing. Like the fact that we don't necessarily always control our fate, right? Like the Greeks are full with this imagery of like not necessarily things being predestined but like the idea of destiny, for example, right? Like they're infatuated with this in Greek society. So I think it's ultimately a story about like a warning of pride and hubris. Like is that fair to say? What did I miss there?
I think that's certainly an element in there. I would add maybe one of the themes is like a glorification of martial prowess and deceit as a virtue rather than a flaw, which is something maybe
True. No, that's fair.
we're not as accustomed to in our Christianized, westernized worldview. But so yeah, I would add that. But yeah, all that is at play there.
Yeah, that's an underrated part about the Greeks. Deceit is like a skill. It's
Yeah.
just as good of a skill as swordsmanship. And Odysseus is like the best at it, which is really interesting. But as far as Christopher Nolan's version of this, like um to the extent that it's hubris, he kind of in Destiny, like he kind of removes the gods in general from this movie, so we can remove that. Um, I think that this is more of like a, and again, like this is where a lot of the guesswork I think comes in because like we don't really know what he was getting at, and it's not perfectly clear. But he's clearly trying to have some sort of like inward looking focus for me. Whether it's like our actions have consequences or like, holy shit, like we just did something like sack Troy and now, the sea people, right, are attacking all these other people. Holy shit, we're the sea people. Like we started this. Like we were the first sea people. Um, which is a
Hmm.
reference if you don't know, like to the audience. That's like I don't even think we really know who the sea people are. Like there's arguments for all sorts of different people, but it's basically these stories throughout Egypt of these people that basically sack cities and villages along the Mediterranean coast, like in Asia Minor and all that, in Canaan and whatnot. But I don't really, I don't really know outside of that, because like I said, like Odysseus is this like introspective, like, holy shit, how did I mess this up? Like I sacked this beautiful city, and like violence is not the answer, maybe. And then like he kills basically three-fifths of the suitors. Like, well, hold on a minute now,
Yeah.
right? Like I, what? I don't know. I kind of rambled there, but you tell me what you think.
Yeah, I think the messaging is just confused. Because yeah, I mean, evidently we're supposed to get this idea that violence is wrong from the violent protagonist. Uh, I don't know, but yeah, the messaging is just strange. I like I said earlier, I think if I had to nail it down, I think it's like uh, well, you after Columbine, that was like the first real school shooting, right?
Hmm.
And it had this mimetic effect where now there's like all these other kids who want to recreate Columbine in their own way, and so they shoot up schools. Uh, Similarly, I mean, that's basically, I guess, what happened with the Bronze Age collapse in Nolan's mind, just on a grand scale. So we have this whole region of Columbine kids, I guess. So I guess the lesson is just don't do anything bad because otherwise people will copy you. I don't know. I guess that's the message. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And really quick, before we go on much further into like what's bad, I did want to say, overall, if I were to rate the movie, I would probably give it an 8.5 out of 10, one of the two. So, like, I thought it was a solid movie. Was it perfect? Was it Oppenheimer? Was it The Martian? No. But um I think that it was good cinema and like worth watching. Yes. Like if let's pretend we live in a world where Homer never wrote the Odyssey, and all we had was this movie. Like it was just like a ancient Greek movie, right? I think this would be universally well received, and including by myself. But I think for me, and maybe this is like me declaring my own bias that I can't get over. It's the fact that there is a Homer, and or sorry, there was a Homer, and there was someone who wrote the Odyssey, that I kind of have like that's the rubric I'm going to use unless like the explicit purpose of the movie is to be like a modern adaptation or like a slight retelling of the story. You know? I like Nolan was very clearly trying to spin the story of the Odyssey, and sometimes like he like mixed or confused a lot of the stuff. Like for example, like Calypso. I know I can't believe we haven't mentioned her yet. She's the one with the lotus flowers, right? And she's like basically trapping Odysseus, right? The lotus
Hmm.
flowers
Hmm.
were like their own thing. It was their own island. Calypso, like in the Odyssey, Odysseus is with Calypso willingly for 7 years, and sleeping with her and doing all this, and it's not until he's finally like, all right, I guess I'm ready to go, that he goes. And I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. I basically, you're right. A lot of people say that he was her sex slave or something, like captive, but I think this, I actually, I read it not too long ago, that section of it, and I think the subtext of it is that he actually was having a pretty great time and only recently had basically got tired of her. Uh and so then he was ready to move on, but yeah. And then I think right before he left, they had sex again, and he seemed pretty pleased with it. So yeah, I think he really just had enough of her. So, uh, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, Calypso, that was also a strange choice. I mean, she played by Charlize Theron, this kind of like Islander MILF. Um, Not really what I envisioned, and the island was not what I envisioned when I read the Odyssey. But I will say, of all of Nolan's choices, hers did not, the addition of her, I don't think deviated that much from how she's depicted in the Odyssey. Even though the Lotus thing wasn't there, it was like its own island. And I feel like the casting choice, at least, of Charlize Theron made more sense. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Then Elliot Page.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
listen, I don't give a shit as anybody about whether the fact that Elliot used to be Ellen. Like, I don't care. I just think that like if you're casting like an ancient Greek warrior, like he needs to look like 1990s Brad Pitt. Like that to me is like what we want, right? Like we want 300 just like, big guy like warriors, you know? Um
Hmm.
I just don't feel like she fit the bill, you know? Like, and maybe that's not fair. Maybe that's whatever. But I think if we're all being honest, I think that's the charitable interpretation is that she just didn't seem like a great fit, you know?
Yeah, and it's one of those things. So he made up a character, I assume, just for Elliot, and this character named Sinon or Sinon. That this this is not a character in the Odyssey. So it seems tailor made for him. Uh,
Him.
yeah, okay, and yeah, it's just odd. Like, why do that? Because the storyline is that Antinous gave his lot, or he forced his draft lot over to Sinon, so that Sinon would go to war and Antinous would be able to stay in Ithaca. Uh, but so, and Sinon was supposed to be weak, I guess, but why not just cast like a scrawny teenager? Why cast someone who you can still tell, but behind the hormones and the surgery is, was at one point a woman's, very obviously. Uh, I don't know, just but going to my rating thing, because this dovetails into the rating.
Sure.
You gave a rating out of 8 out of 10. I would honestly give a similar, like probably 7 or 8 out of 10. And what sucks is it could have been a 9 to a 9.5 or even a 10 out of 10 if some of these artistic choices were just made more intelligently. Like, but there's so many unforced errors that I can't even, despite uh all the expert filmmaking he employed, I can't give it anywhere near a perfect score. It has to be probably, eight at the highest, but probably seven if I'm being totally fair.
I'm not super upset with that rating. I'm just trying, and maybe I don't know, maybe I'm trying to overcorrect for my bias here. But like, I would say like the movie was shot very well. Like the cinematography is, it's a Christopher Nolan movie, so like obviously it's fucking fantastic. Um, I don't care as much about the casting choices as you do, maybe, but I could see how that could hammer it down for you, right? Um, like for example, if they had a bunch of like you and me's in 300, I would probably be like, okay, come on now. Um, but in terms of like total like storytelling, like I just keep trying to tell myself that like, okay, if I didn't know about the original Odyssey, I think that this movie would be a fucking smash in the park. So I don't know. That's why I'm trying to be kind here and charitable. But do I think that it's as good as like Oppenheimer or The Martian? No, not even close. Not even fucking close.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm gonna you're gonna hate me. I would rank this movie, even though I didn't love it. I'm gonna rank it higher than Oppenheimer. I'm gonna rank it higher than Tenet. I'm not gonna rank it as high as the Batmans he did. I think his Batmans are really good, and 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 the messaging was clear in Batman. It was you know, deep state propaganda to justify the war on terror and mass surveillance, and it did it in a cool way, and I loved it. Uh, but
Yeah, well,
yeah,
and
this.
and the casting and the Dark Knight Rises was just as good as, and the Dark Knight as good as it gets, right?
Oh yeah.
Like I mean, Heath Ledger's Joker is it's the most iconic. When people think of Joker, that's who they think of. They don't think of any other Joker, and there's only about 70 to choose from, right? Like I mean, as far as it goes, like the Joker is about as saturated as the Superman character or Batman, right? And people always think of different Supermans, different Batmans, different people only think of one Joker, right? Like that's how on point that casting was. So,
Oh yeah.
maybe I'm talking myself into what you're saying about casting. Like casting is arguably the most one of the most important parts of making the movie. So, like, well, let me ask you this: what did you think of Matt Damon's Odysseus?
You know, I think he did a totally passable job. I think for the interpretation of Odysseus that Nolan took, which was this sad, reflective, PTSD ridden veteran. Well, then I think Matt Damon played that perfect. But, Matt Damon is not who jumps up at me from the page when I read the Odyssey. I'll say that. I imagine someone.
Like Sean
Uh,
Bean in Troy. Like that's kind of who I think of.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah.
He
I think
crushed
they
it.
really nailed it with him.
He
Yeah.
crushed it. I mean, some dude who's supposed to be this, I mean, almost like talks in poems, right? Like incredibly wise, but also like incredibly arrogant, like he is in there. And I'm like, that's a perfect, like, you don't get to choose some casting choices. Like, some casting choices are just perfect, right? Like,
Definitely, definitely.
it's just the way it is. Like, like the obvious one being like Iron Man and Robert Downey Jr. Like fucking perfect. You know?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Super good. Super good. And then some of the casting decisions I felt were good. I mean, Robert Pattinson playing Antinous,
Perfect. Yeah,
he
loved it.
yeah. Yeah, because he played this like, much talk, not a lot of walk. And there are hints of that within the Odyssey, and I feel like Christopher Nolan really expounded on that character, and really played that up in his Odyssey, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I think he did a great job. Uh, him especially. I think everyone else was pretty passable. I I do like. I mean, and there's a lot I like as well, like what he did with Agamemnon. Even though the armor was a tad silly, it did have aura. Like I do like when he was at the gates of Troy and they opened it up, and it looks like Darth Vader about to like just crush us. Like I thought that was really cool, actually. So there's a lot I do like about it, and that's why I rated it so high, despite my misgivings.
Yeah. I will say about that, like I think my favorite scenes about the Odyssey have got to be like the back half of the Iliad. Like basically like the Trojan horse scene, right? Like that I think I just hate and Nolan does this in basically all his freaking movies. I hate it. Um, I think Nolan's good director, great director. But one of the things that he does that pisses me off is when he's doing like almost like a biopic or like basically like a retelling of like something that ish happens like this Oppenheimer. It's not chronological. He like starts at the end and then goes back and forth, or he starts at the midpoint, back and forth, back and forth. So like rather than seeing like the Trojan War, like the tail end of it, and then like through completion, we're having to get bits and pieces of it. So it's kind of out of whack. Like, so I couldn't stand it. It made me want to, and I know why he did that. He did that because that was the best parts of the fucking movie. So he was like, if I can get this like dopamine rush, like it'll basically carry the movie, like at different parts though. So like
Yeah,
I,
I
the Fall of
agree. I'm
Troy was
not.
the best part of the movie for me.
I that was probably my most enjoyable part as well. That and then the scene where he's like killing the suitors. I love the action, but
I could do without that. I thought it was eh. Thought it was eh.
really, I thought that was one of the high points. I'm a big action. I guess I like the action, but you didn't like. Did it seem almost unbelievable, corny to you, or?
Yeah, I mean it's almost like you ever seen Reacher or like do you know like what the show Reacher is, right?
I've never seen it, but I've heard. I think I know what you mean.
He's basically this invincible, all-American badass, 10 foot tall, bulletproof guy. And that's kind of what Odysseus was. Like, I mean, they're literally like, there's one dude who's literally running in circles around Matt Damon's character throughout the whole fight. That's all he does. And so it's like, I mean, give me a fucking break, right? Like, there's 40 dudes in there. You're telling me they can't just gang up on him and choke him? Come on. So, although the axe scene where he, strings the bow, iconic. He plucks it and then strings it, shoots it, bang, iconic. As soon as the fighting started, I was like, oh God, I'm gonna have to just sit through this. Which is unpopular. I will concede is unpopular. But I could always do without the hyper unrealistic action scenes. I could do without.
Yeah, I will say it was a bit much. I mean, because, and I haven't actually reached that point in the Odyssey yet. I'm reading it. I mean, I think in high school I've read excerpts of it. I don't know if I read the whole thing or not, but I don't think I did. But so I'm like I was familiar with the material, but before this, uh, but I think in the actual Odyssey, like he had more help. Like he had Telemachus with him, and then like in the movie, they hit all the weapons, so they're the only ones with weapons, and there's multiple of them. And I believe like even the swineherd, Eumeus, I believe he was there to help, and then some of the other servants were like supporting, maybe in more indirect ways, kind of like they did in the movie. So to me, the book makes it a little more believable. Like, okay, all these guys are unarmed, and then Odysseus and Telemachus have weapons, a bow and swords and spears. So of course they're going to be able to do a lot more damage. They can watch each other's backs, and you got to think like it's still even then a little uh hard to believe, but if you and like maybe two other buddies had like big knives, and then you're in a room full of unarmed people who uh are not particularly like battle seasoned. You could probably take out a decent chunk of them. Probably, I don't know how many people you think you could kill, like 30 before they would be able to stop y'all, like 40 maybe.
Oh, that's crazy. No. How many people did you say had knives?
Uh
Like me and how
I-
many other people?
like two or three other guys.
No, we would not kill 40 people. You're out of your fucking mind. They would swarm us. We might get one or two, dude.
They
You gotta count it like numbers, dude. Like if there's 40 people in a room and you got three dudes with knives, doesn't matter. They will get you instantly. You know?
If they were all organized, but if they were disorganized and they kind of like attacked in waves and some hung back hoping that the others would take all the blows for them.
See, now you're playing
I
hope chess. Playing hope chess.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe I'm like kind of, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like it's at least more in the realm of believability, because I do think like psychologically, like like in Christopher Nolan's interpretation, most of the suitors are total cowards, and so we have like Antinous saying, go get him," like the entire fight, and while Odysseus is like spearing people in the face and stuff. So I don't know. Maybe there's like a diffusion of responsibility. Maybe yeah, I could believe it. I could believe it if there were like two or three other guys, and one of them is like this legendary war hero,
Hmm. Well,
and the
see, I think here's what they get right in like I hate comparing this to Troy, but like Brad Pitt's character, he's not the ultimate badass, right? Like he basically all his key fights are one on one because they know, and he does a couple of like 2v1s, 3v1s, but it's nothing like fucking 40v1. No. There's even a scene where he goes up to Agamemnon to kind of bow up to him for his concubine, right? And like seven dudes show up, and fucking Achilles is like, "Ah, fuck, I'm kind of in a pickle here," like because it's that I don't know, like the realism there was somehow more apparent than it was in this story. So,
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, you make a good point because yeah, I mean, that's a feature in the movie Troy and then the Iliad. I mean, that's why that's part of the reason, or at least it's understood why Achilles doesn't want to try his luck with Agamemnon. It's because Agamemnon has more men than Achilles, at least double.
mhm. Yeah.
So yeah,
Which
I mean,
which is
I get it.
speaking of, how in
Hmm.
the fuck are you gonna tell a story like this and you're not gonna have Achilles, you're not going to have Ajax, you're not going to have Hector, Priam. I mean, they don't even really show Helen at the fall of Troy, right? Like they show Helen whenever what's his name goes to Menelaus, right? Like it just kind of seems like what are we doing, right? Like and I understand like you don't want to harp too much on the Iliad, like the tail end of the Iliad, but I don't know. Like, I don't know how you can tell the story of Odysseus without telling the story of Achilles, Priam, Hector, right? Like, it just seems like, oh, all that happened was this fucking horse showed up, So, um, I don't know.
Oh yeah, I mean, they showed one princess getting killed, but they didn't show like. And I get it might have been too much for like a for the audiences, but they took Hector. Hector had already been dead by the fall of Troy. But
Right.
uh, they could have showed them like taking Andromache and then like throwing her baby off the ramparts. Now that would have been a brave choice. That did appear. Uh, well, not explicitly. in the Odyssey, it's in a poem that's currently lost to us, but we do understand that that is a feature of the epic cycle that did occur based on ancient scholarship. So
Yeah. No, totally agree. What else you got for this movie?
I think that was about it. I mean, yeah, I didn't love it. I could have loved it if he made better choices. So mildly disappointed, but overall I liked it a lot and I might even see it again. So,
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I mean, I probably will go see it again. Um, I have my critiques that are slightly different than yours. Like I'm still really upset about the Cyclops scene, man. Like
oh yeah.
that I mean
Yeah.
that is the most iconic scene in the story, right? Like love it or hate it, that is the truth. And the Cyclops basically can't talk. It's like murmuring and it just says Poseidon. It doesn't even say like his name is nobody, right? Or whatever. Which is like Odysseus is famous for these tricks, and he tricks the fucking Cyclops that his name is nobody or no one. And so whenever they stab him in the fucking eye, he screams like "No one hurt me, no one hurt me," and that's the reason the other Cyclops don't.
Oh.
And the whole reason like Poseidon gets pissed at Odysseus is because Odysseus has the fucking gall to just be like, "Yeah, by the way, my name is Odysseus" to the Cyclops, and they just
Yeah.
that's what starts this war with Poseidon, and it's just so stupid. I don't know. I could rant about that for days.
Yeah, I wish it was in there because it is so iconic. Like when I think about when I went over the Odyssey in high school, which I think I read just like some abridged or excerpt. I definitely didn't read the full Odyssey, but I do remember that portion stuck out and it stuck with me. So it was a shame that it wasn't included. I do think it might have been a little difficult to put it to film. Like maybe it wouldn't translate well because I think to a Greek audience, you know, in the time of Homer, it probably translated really well because I think the Greek word for nobody or something. I think I read this in the introduction to the Odyssey, actually, that I'm currently reading. It's a word that sounds similar to Odysseus, so it would make a whole lot more. It would make even more sense to the Greek audience hearing it. Like, oh, he said a name that's similar to Odysseus, but when the other giants hear it, they hear nobody. And so I don't know. It was even more clever in the original Greek, but